Carl is here with me. He usually doesn't like when I'm filming. He just like doesn't doesn't chill with me. But I am gonna talk about it while I'm here in bed with my little kitty. He's such a precious kitty. He's very awesome. Um, I hope I don't bother him. So I do want to bring up about um the industry of sex work and those that need it. In my live, I talked about it just recently about how you have your McDonald's porn, which is like corporates and companies who control, like they employ people instead of individuals who do their own sex work. It's like a whole ass studio to do for all of that, for all of these people. When those are cheap as fuck, because all of our capitalistic society is based on, oh, no one has enough money, everything is cheap. I'm talking about wages, things to buy, things to do. It's complicated because it depends on what you're looking for, right? And with any industry, regardless of sex work, all of them will not support, for the vast majority, especially for corporate, they will not support for disabled people. And this I'm going to bring up for trans people as well. Because I just got this TikTok about trans girls and trans women. They get fired really easily. So do disabled people. They don't get to keep their jobs. They don't even get hired usually, because even though it's illegal to have discriminatory systems that they have, like, oh, I don't want it, but they can always say for anything whatsoever. I get fired all the time and they'll just say it's labor cuts. If anybody doesn't accept them, they'll just say, because I had a better candidates. Anyone can lie about whatever they want, because guess what? The whole society we have is no support for all of that. I knew he would be annoyed. He'd be annoyed. And it's a flex. Anyway, when we have this entire society where you have no support and no netting for people like disabled, trans, or queer, and people of color, we don't have options for choice at all for those who are not a straight, white, abled man. The whole thing is in shambles. When you have people who do sex work, if it's in a corporate, it means somebody who's doing sex work. It's usually for corporates, they don't have niche stuff because it's for cheap as fuck for as many people as possible. That's what you're talking about, fast food of porn. When you have, I knew he would be annoyed. Carl would be annoyed that I'm talking. No, it's not that. It's just he wanted to cuddle. Sorry, my bladder's full anyway. Because of any industry does not support for anyone to have a job there, and also nobody has wages that are life, what do you say, living wage. Nobody can appreciate anything whatsoever. Nobody can appreciate the things they like art, food, pleasure, whatever. People have less options for all of those type of stuff. When you have, especially for people who are disabled in a lot of ways, in order to survive, you have to have sex work. that applies a lot with trans women because they themselves have no option to have a job. That's what they get for people who are disabled. You can't maintain the job or can't even get hired for jobs. And that's why you have most of the porn creators are, for probably the most of sex workers. I don't know the percentages, but actual creators instead of employees in sex work do not have the option to, they don't have support for what they do, and it's a necessity. It's a survival mode because they can't even have a full house or a full apartment. So everything is poor right now. Everyone can't support even the normal stuff they would want to. I can't afford a lot of luxuries in my life as is currently because of the capitalistic society we have. I have liked to do sex work because I couldn't be fired for sex work. But the demand or lack thereof is that will define where I'm supposed to go with it. I am white, so I have a better percentage of probability of getting people to view me. But I'm not as much fam anymore and whatever, So I don't even get the options for that. But that's still the only thing that I was making enough at the time. I would take a job, get fired. That's that. It would happen year after year, and I would still need money, so I would still do sex work. I had been doing sex work for like 9 years. Yeah. And I don't want you to shame anyone who does any sex work. This is a symptom of capitalism. However, when you assume that all porn is addiction and people who consume this are people who are rotting their brains, you are not getting to the point of what you're referring to as addictions. All addictions come to the very core just shame. So when you have somebody who's addicted to, and that's for most of stuff, unless it's a substance that strictly alters your brain. I wouldn't say that those things would do the same thing to your brain. You wouldn't get, I'm conflicted with that because AI does alter your brain and so does probably social media, but it's not the same that you're expecting. If you assume that people who consume porn are someone who is inherently, like the vast majority of them are addicted, I would say it's probably less likely than you would get for anyone who's using ChatGPT or people who just use social media as often as we do than you would for porn itself, I would say. I'm just talking out of my ass, though. Because symptoms of capitalism, everything, the convenience will affect people's bodies in a lot of ways. To say that, oh, this person's addictive, this person has an addiction and they don't deserve support and it's their own thing to deal with, then you ignore what is happening based on our entire society. Why does anybody need to have a substance? Why does anybody who has too much food? Why does anybody want to have porn? It's because our entire society has made on shame, which means this person's, if it's substance, there's a trauma that our society will not treat for that person, which means, like we have an issue with insurance. We shouldn't have insurance. We should just have healthcare. Blah, blah, blah. If that's what people's their feed, having food issues, like eating disorders, that would be a form of an addiction based on our entire society, where we fat phobe, they do a bunch of shit for hating all of the fat in the world. That's the shame that people have for any addiction they would have for eating disorders. So then you get all the way to the porn. If you think that somebody there has an addiction, that would mean that they spend a lot of time in porn and they ignore other things that they need for their day. Like, I need to go not have as much of nuts as possible. I need to make sure I get to work or meet people, so that all of that, if they let go of that for their addiction, they just focus on the addiction, that's when you get that. And guess what's the core of that? Porn is sex itself. What is sex? A human experience of pleasure. Why do we find that as shameful for people in general? Again, it's capitalism. We don't support people to experience their own individual experiences. If you were an individual, instead of as a number or as a collective, if you were not just a profit for the billionaires, then they would not have to shame you for all of these different things. They need you to be all of everyone in the society that we have. They need to, based on capitalism, they require them to be in survival mode, which means you're poor, you're full of shame, and you're full of illness, because everything is profitable. So when people don't allow themselves to experience things in moderation, then everything becomes addictive. Every single form you could get will be out of balance, out of moderation. Everything is based on this and that. So I can't say that everyone is addicted to porn. Porn is subjective, because it's only because you don't accept you're to experience things. You say sex is shameful. I hold the shame. I can't experience it, which means nothing is valuable, because to you and the society you have, that it's not valuable to have pleasure. Just like you would with a substance. If people will judge you based on that, your body, your pleasure, your trauma, then all of this will come to you not being around with people. You will be isolating, and you will not have the option to experience other people, which means you will only use consumption to help and to an appearance of what you think would let you let go of things or distract you from your pain of holding the shame that society has made for you. So yeah. And now nobody has enough money to even pay for all of the whatever niche fetishes they have based on all of that, because society doesn't. Maybe my cat moved because he knows that I move. I gesticulate. So when your entire society doesn't allow you to and like buy shit you want, as in like healthy food, little pleasures like versions of sex, whatever, without being shamed for it, then everyone will just buy for consume for other things. And since you can't afford it because of the society you are, you'll take the cheapest option, which means the worst one. So that's why even disability and trans people in the sex work industry, they don't make enough money, because even those who are into the industry and they're consuming, they themselves will not accept to support a world that they themselves consume because it's a version of shame. And even then, sometimes people still pay for it, but for the vast majority of people, they hold that shame from your entire society that sex is bad. And if you even let this know to other people, I mean, like, not online. I mean, can you talk to people, to real human being, flesh and bone right next to you? And why? Now you'll figure out, oh shit. And if you're not going to support creators, then everyone's fucked. And the only reason for individual creators instead of a corporation, once those with actual artists and creators for all of these fun other things for sex, which is something, usually if they're individual, they choose what they want to do. Unless, they still need to make money. And you basically, when you don't pay enough for someone's sex work, you literally tell them they're not worth it for this type of thing. And because just like capitalism says that to you and the entire society, then even a person as an artist is not appreciated, which means just like the rest of the capitalistic society, that the art and creation is not valuable to anyone. So, yeah, when everybody accepts the bare, the cheap level options of everything, it means that your entire society agrees that all humans are not valuable. And so if I can't even keep a job for a capitalistic world, the only option I can do is consumption for sex work. And if I'm not making money from that, I'm worth nothing. Based on capitalistic society that we agree to, for every single one of us agrees to this, then we take the, we agree to accepting the abuse of all of it. So, no, I don't even think that porn is an addiction unless you yourself will not talk about anybody about it. That probably means that you're holding shame. If you're not addicted to it yet, you could, because you are not allowed to talk about it to people like you would for the way you like to eat, the way you like to have substances of so whatever form it may be. So yeah, for my experience as a sex worker, because I'm autistic, I lose the jobs. I never get to keep a job because, number one, I work well because I'm physically able and I'm also smart. But I start the job, then they fire me anyway because a lot of people do not like to see autists in the world, in the capitalistic world, because we generally have a sense of justice where, like, that's unfair and that doesn't work for capitalism, because a lot of people who are not autistic, they accept the abuse and the level of abuse and unfairness inherently. So of course a manager is going to fire me because I would be like, why would you do this a certain way when this other type of people is getting an unfair balance? So that's why autist people get fired a lot. If I didn't have a certain handwork, or if I didn't have an easier option to walk, or if I was trans, which I kind of am, but if I was I don't know, that probably affects what I do because I always shave my head anyway. If I was a trans woman, I would probably have a different thing. Until you're passable trans. That the whole thing is, you would prove that people deserve to experience goodness and fairness. And capitalism does not support this at all. And they would say, this doesn't work, our system. because now you're asking. Now you're asking for a change, and you're going to challenge the systems that they have. That's why they fire you, because if they keep you on, more people will see that we want to value humans in general, and capitalism does not do that. And so now I'm over here trying to talk more things and figure out other options for witchcraft, because it also doesn't support me for sex work, because I don't make enough for a rent. And a lot of people don't make enough any of it. If people are doing sex work, a lot of people, especially individuals, are disabled or trans or both. And then it's as much they can do to survive. Ultimately, we want to ignore the necessity of a survival mode, and you could just say, I don't need all of that. The money is I just need to exist. From that, I'll figure that out. And move on based on that. I don't need to hold any other shame, because capitalism needs you to be shamed for some reason. They always needs you to be shamed so that you can ignore your needs, accepts a lot of abuse, and you also can just pay a lot of shit for stuff that you think will make you feel better, but it doesn't. So there's that. Sorry about that.